If you've been in church at all, you've heard the term stewardship. Now, a lot of times when we think about stewardship, we think about money, we think about tithing 10% or how we're going to give to the church in some way. And all of that is true and all of that is biblical, and we might even save that for another video. But today I want to apply that concept to the life of a creative, of an artist. Because if you're anything like me, you struggle with it. You struggle with stewarding a gift, stewarding your time, doing that sort of thing. And so I want to dive into what it means to steward your time and steward your giftings well for the Lord, for the kingdom, and even what that doesn't look like, and how that impacts your spiritual growth as an artist, spiritual growth as just a whole follower of Jesus. So I'm excited to jump in. So stewardship. Stewardship is this concept and this word that you probably hear tossed around in church circles, and a lot of times when we're referring to stewardship, we're talking about how we use our dollars, right? How we use the money earned to further the kingdom. But I want to take a minute and kind of reevaluate and see if we can kind of reorient that word a little bit and see how it even impacts our lives as artists and creatives and just as general Jesus followers. You know, a quote that I was really convicted by a couple of years ago. I was sitting at a conference made for creatives and artist types. It was called the Canvas Conference. It was back in California. We actually have a video about that. You can check it out. I'll link it below about my experience there. But probably the biggest takeaway I had from that conference is this one quote. And it was Paul Tripp, which, if you know me, Paul Tripp is like who I want to be when I grow up. Paul Tripp is like one of the most influential like theologians, preachers, pastor types, and I really love him. So this quote is just a perfect one. But he wasn't there as a pastor and as a speaker, but he was actually there as a poet. If you don't know this, he does some poetry. And he got a question like, how do you write so much? Like, how do you do poetry? How do you write so many books? How do you do all these things? And he said this one thing that really stuck with me. And he said, waiting for inspiration is poor stewardship. Now, that hit me hard. I don't know if it hit you as hard as it did me, but let me just say it again just for posterity. Waiting for inspiration is poor stewardship. So what that means is, as an artist, as a creative, as maybe somebody like you that makes things, it can be hard just to sit down and do it, right? Like we want to wait for the lightning to strike. We want to wait for that inspiration to hit. And what Tripp was getting at is this was actually poor stewardship. Poor stewardship of what the Lord has called you to do, of what the Lord has called me to do, is like waiting for lightning to strike. That isn't stewardship. That isn't orienting our lives in such a way that we are using the giftings, using the talents that the Lord gives us. In fact, that kind of mimics the story in the parable that Jesus tells about the talents, using your skills well. And so stewardship is more about money. Stewardship is using well what you have been entrusted with. Whether that is your family, whether that is maybe the church you pastor, maybe that is the talents and the art skill that you have. Good stewardship is using that well. And I think I want to touch on two things to be mindful of. That was one of them. But the second one maybe might speak a little bit more to something I struggle with is you can't give what you don't have. We can't neglect our spiritual formation, our spiritual disciplines in order to make things, right? Like we can't sit down and make things as Christian creatives if we aren't first filling ourselves. This includes like our time in the Word. This includes our time worshiping together with the gathered body. These are all things that we can't give unless we also have them. And I think that's really important and really important to be mindful of, because so oftentimes we just try to sit down and make something or wait for the inspiration, and then when the inspiration hits, we make something. But what I'm remembering from Tripp talking about that is indeed poor stewardship, because not only are we not doing what we're entrusted with, but we're doing it poorly. You know, a thing I've been trying to put into my brain recently is something is worth doing, it's worth doing well. And for me, that means sitting down, getting in the Word, really filling myself spiritually and emotionally so that I have the bandwidth to sit down and do. And I probably know what you're thinking. What does that mean, TJ? I don't really understand what you're trying to get at. So I'm going to give you two practical tips. And this is something I'm going to be trying to do regularly on this channel, is giving you practical tips if you're an artist or creative or just a follower of Jesus to just grow in your spiritual development as well as your craft and character. So 2 little tips for you if you're trying to steward your giftings well. The first tip is schedule a time and stick to it. Okay, so schedule a time that you're going to make something and stick to it. So if you want to write poetry, say, okay, at 10 a.m. every morning, I'm going to sit down with my cup of coffee and write a poem, write a line. Don't worry about publishing, right? Don't worry about finishing the thing. Just sit down and do it. This is one thing that I've been convicted of a lot. In fact, that's why I'm doing this in a live format, is because I want to share more about the life of a creative. I even want to make more, and we'll get to that in a minute. But I need to set a time, and I need to do it. So set a date with yourself. Set a time on the calendar that you're going to make something, or you're going to do that thing that the Lord has entrusted you to do at that time. I know that's happened to me in the past, and that's been really helpful. The next thing is work to publish. And I know that might seem a little contradictory since I just said sit down and don't expect to publish the thing. But what I mean is a lot of times as artists we can get in our heads. We can stop thinking about actually putting something out into the world, but we can get really overcritical of what we're trying to make. And sometimes you just have to make things. Sometimes you just have to try and fail, and things have to go wrong, and the audio equipment won't work or something like that. It happens all the time. But you have to make things, and you have to work to publish. Work to put something out there. Art isn't finished until it's digested, I think, in my opinion. If you have a contrary opinion, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. But art isn't finished until it is digested and heard by the people around you, around in this world, in this audience, in the place of the internet. And that doesn't necessarily mean you put everything on Spotify or everything on YouTube, or you publish a book every week. That isn't really able to be tracked with, but rather we work to publish. We work to put something out, because again, that is really pushing into what the Lord's entrusted you to do, to cultivate your skills, to curate a culture for the kingdom by making things as an artist, as even a mom, as a dad. The Lord has entrusted you with things, and so it's your job to steward that well. And last tip, in fact, I'll give you a little bonus one, is collaborate with people. You know, community brings better things. The Lord has designed us not to live in isolation, but to live with other people. So do that with your art. Do that with your craft. Do that with the thing that the Lord's entrusted you with. Collaborate with people. Sometimes bringing others into the process helps you stay accountable and grow in the art that you make. That's why we're doing it like this. That's why I'm on here live talking to you about stewardship, is I want to be held accountable by you. I want to make things and put them out into the world and trust that I hear back from you, as well as you hold me accountable and say, hey, TJ, that was not good. I want to hear more about this. I don't want to hear about that. And so subscribe to the channel. Take a second and just subscribe on YouTube or on Facebook, wherever you are, so that you can be that kind of feedback cycle for what Illumination Project is going to be putting out. I'm really looking forward to 2023, and I'm excited about what the Lord has in store. Thanks. Are you tired of getting the same old thing from artists? A song on Spotify for you to listen to and then move on to the next one? Us too. That's why we started The Crew. The Crew is a Patreon community where you get to partner with us in creating to bring glory to the Creator. And as a member, you'll get things like merchandise discounts, access to live streams that aren't shown anywhere else, along with devotional content that we're calling memos and meditations. But it's more than just the perks that you get. It's about being part of something larger than yourself and larger than what we're trying to do, which is providing a contrast culture than the things that are out there. Providing art that is engaging and creative and encouraging those in their walk with Jesus. That's what we're trying to do. So head over, join our Patreon, join the Crew for less than $5 a month. You can join us over there and just watch and see what we can do together. I'm really excited about 2023. I hope you are too. So I'll see you over there. Click over, join the Crew. See you inside.